Welcome to 1 Minute to Midnight. I'm Wilfred Cunningham. On the evening of the 15th of July, elements of the Turkish military attempted to seize parts of Ankara and Istanbul in an effort to overthrow the Turkish government, or perhaps more specifically, the President of Turkey, Recep Tayipp Erdogan. By the morning of the following day, it was clear that they had failed. Turkey's military, often seen as the country's guardian of its secular democracy, have conducted 2 coups d'états and issued 2 memorandums, essentially ultimatums demanding change, since 1960. They have also been suspected of another, however this is unproven. The military, alongside the country's judiciary, have a tradition of intervening in state affairs when Kemalist ideas, of which the country's constitution is based, are perceived to be threatened. Kemalism is so named after the first president of Turkey, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, who led the country from the 29th of October 1923 to the 10th of November 1938. His rule as the first leader of Turkey, newly independent from the Ottoman Empire, saw him westernize the country, establishing a democratic and secular government and introducing equal rights for women. Kemalism, as the principal founding ideology of Turkey, is too broad to explain fully here. However, alongside republicanism, populism, reformism, statism, and nationalism, one of the key facets of the ideology is that of state secularism, the separation of religion and the democratic process. The article stating that the established religion of Turkey is Islam was removed from the constitution during the ending of Kemal's presidency on the 5th of February 1937. A reasonable explanation for the attempted coup may be the army's sense of duty and tradition, which calls for them to protect both democracy and secularism. The President of Turkey, who was previously its Prime Minister from the 14th of March 2003 until the 28th of August 2014, when he became President, has been criticised widely for stifling both. Many critics of Recep Tayipp Erdogan believe his calls for a referendum to transition Turkey into an executive presidency, which he made after his party's election victory on the 1st of November 2015, and which he continues to make, a part of his drive to maintain power and influence the country in a much greater capacity than previous presidents. On the 5th of May, Ahmet Davutoglu, Turkey's Prime Minister, announced he would resign. Davutoglu, who was chosen to be Prime Minister by Erdogan, disagreed with him around issues of Europe and the ceding of powers to the presidency, and his resignation has been interpreted by some as being forced, or as a form of protest. Davutoglu was replaced by Binali Yildirim, who has a history of loyalty and continued support towards Erdogan, and was elected on the 22nd of May and assumed office 2 days later, as the only candidate offered. This no doubt consolidated Erdogan's position, and alongside documented cases of electoral fraud in the local elections in 2009 and 2014, and the 2011 general election, together with the government takeover of numerous media outlets that had in the past criticised the government or Erdogan, made his commitment to democracy dubious, at least in the eyes of his critics. To Erdogan's critics, again inside and outside of Turkey, he has in recent years systematically silenced criticism and removed effective political opposition. On the 26th of October 2015, just a few days before the 1st of November general elections, Koza İpek Holding, a Turkish conglomerate that incorporates more than 20 media outlets, was forcibly placed under a panel of mainly pro-government trustees. On the 4th of March 2016, Turkish authorities seized Zaman, the country's most widely circulated newspaper, and placed it under the administration of a court-appointed panel of trustees. Writers such as Erol Özkürey have been detained for criticising the government and are often personally sued by Erdogan in a country where libel is a criminal offence. In April 2014, the President of the Constitutional Court, Hasim Kilic, accused Erdogan of damaging the credibility of the judiciary, and on retiring in February 2015, he warned that the judiciary was being turned into an instrument of revenge by politicians. what are usually known as the Ergenekon trials, a series of high-profile trials in Turkey, have seen 275 people, including military officers of varying rank, journalists, and those critical of Erdogan or the government, accused of plotting against the government. They are or were alleged members of Ergenekon, a secret organisation with the aim of overthrowing the government. This, and the trials for another alleged plot, often referred to as Sledgehammer, has seen many senior officers in the Turkish army removed, and has had the effect of limiting the army's power and ability to intervene in state matters, but arguably has alienated traditionalists within the military hierarchies. However, this is not the only reason parts of the army had for trying to remove Erdogan and his government. Erdogan began his political career as a moderate Islamist politician, being elected the mayorship of Istanbul in 1994 as the candidate of the Welfare Party, a politicized Sunni party. The party was banned in 1998 for violating laws separating religion and politics, and Erdogan was sentenced to 10 months in prison, of which he served 120 days in incarceration, for inciting hatred based on religious differences. Since then, many have accused him of trying to subvert the secularism guaranteed by the constitution, the most recent example of which is Parliament Speaker and important ally to Erdogan, Ismail Karaman, stating that the new constitution should forgo mentions of secularism. The Turkey Analyst, a bi-weekly publication centered around Turkish current affairs, argues that Erdogan has specifically aimed at inserting much more Islamic content into the country's school curriculum, with Erdogan stating in February 2012 that he wanted to raise more pious generations. Perhaps more importantly, however, is Erdogan's relationship with Fethullah Gülen, an Islamic cleric who founded the Hizmet movement, sometimes also called the Gülen movement. Gülen was formerly accused of demanding the dismantling of the secular Turkish state, but acquitted of such charges in 2006. But his critics have continued to argue that Gülen's wishes are for Turkey to be transformed into an Islamic republic. He was perhaps Erdogan's most important ally, as up to 10% of the Turkish population identify as being part of or associated with the Hizmet movement. But in 2013, Gülen withdrew his backing of Erdogan, and a subsequent corruption scandal embroiled the highest levels of government, with an audio recording emerging of the apparent voice of Erdogan telling his son to dispose of tens of millions of dollars. The scandal is believed by many analysts to be the aftermath of a power struggle between Gülen and Erdogan, or at least signs of sudden distrust between the two because of issues of power. Erdogan has accused Gülen, who now lives in self-imposed exile in the United States, of orchestrating the attempted coup. However, Gülen has denied responsibility and condemned the action publicly and in certain terms. After the attempted coup was crushed, he suggested it may have been a false flag operation.
Herhangi bir varlığın mevcudiyetine tahammüller olmadığından, bu cennete götürme hareketi bile olsa olmadığından, peygamberlere ulaştırma hareketi olsa tahammüller olmadığından zannediyorum böyle değişik ad ve namlarla sizi karalamak istiyorlar. O biraz evvel bahis mevzu olan şey, hani halihazırdaki bu durum da onlar tarafından hazırlanmış bir senaryo mu? Hakikaten bir jaluzi aralığından böyle bakma gibi bir şey yani. Bakabilirsiniz. Bir kapı aralığı demiyorum da yani ihtimal, mülahaza dairesi aç.
While there is no immediate evidence for this, some circumstances do appear to give credit to the theory that the attempted coup may have been staged, with the participants manipulated into action or allowed to operate in a way shaped by the government. For example, an attempt was made by members of the coup to kill or capture President Erdogan. However, it came too late. Seemingly, no attempt was made to capture any members of the government, or to seize or shut down all media channels, all of which analysts have described as being critical and the first steps of any successful coup. It seems difficult to accept that a military coup, seemingly organised by high-ranking officers in the Turkish army, wouldn't realise that these steps were necessary, and the first thing that needed to happen in the coup was the neutralisation of Erdogan himself. Additionally, it had been reported that 2 F-16 fighter jets belonging to the coup had the opportunity to engage the plane carrying Erdogan as he flew from Turkey's south coast back to Istanbul. It seems that the jets did not attempt to shoot down Erdogan's plane or coerce it into turning back. The jets may, however, have been unarmed, or armed with air-to-ground weapons only, and these details, at the moment, are unclear. But in addition to this, it has been reported that some soldiers, arrested for being part of the coup, have said they believed at the time they were part of a military exercise. Some have said that the speed at which the government has purged the army and judiciary indicated it had either planned or known about the coup for some time, or at the very least had a pre-prepared list of people it planned to purge. Prime Minister Yildirim announced on the day the attempt was crushed that 2,839 soldiers of various ranks had been detained and that 2,745 judges had been dismissed, and by the 18th of July, a total of 103 generals and admirals had been detained, and 7,899 police officers, 614 gendarmerie officers, 47 district governors, and 30 regional governors had been suspended. Erdogan does seem to have gained from the coup and its failure. Patrick Coburn, writing in The Independent, argues that Erdogan is likely to find it easier to create an executive presidency, and that his next move may be to insert mention of Islam into the constitution. However, Mustafa Akyol, writing for Turkey Pulse, states Erdogan is willing to not abolish Turkey's constitutional secularism, as some fear, but rather to use religion in the most effective way. The coup attempt demonstrates a certain instability, but perhaps that's exactly what Erdogan wanted. Or maybe it was just a coup that failed. Either way, it seems that Erdogan's position has been strengthened, at least for now. So, until next time, goodbye, and try to remain calm.